So here's what we're gonna do to start. We're gonna take this yoga ball, TheraBall, physio ball, whatever you wanna call it, and we are gonna wedge it between our pelvis and our wall. So I'm just gonna use this plyo box to substitute as a wall. If you don't have a TheraBall, one of the options that you could do is to take something like a Pilates ball, which you can get for super cheap on Amazon. I bought a 3-pack of these on Amazon, including this one and 2 others. I blew them all up to different sizes. So this would be like the medium size. And I use this for a lot of different things. I don't use it for Pilates, but it comes in very handy for these classes. If you don't have something like this, what you could do for this exercise is just use one of these. And instead of using a wall, take a door frame and set yourself up in a door frame, assuming you're not 6 feet tall. If you're very tall, this won't work. If you're short like me, it will work. But if you set up on your hands and knees in between the door frame, you can then put yourself, so let's say you've got your door here, this is your walkthrough, and then you've got the frame in between. You can put the ball on the frame, and then this is gonna sound weird and it's gonna look weird, but then you can straddle the door frame, and then you could make the exact same exercise work. Now let's actually give you a visual so you know what the heck I'm talking about. So I'm gonna take this ball, I'm gonna put it behind me, I'm gonna come up in front of it, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the ball, and you can kind of play with placement in terms of where you want it on your pelvis, but I'm gonna try and put it on my sit bones or between my sit bones and the wall, and you can actually use your feet to kind of adjust the ball up and down as needed. So you wanna get it on your sit bones if you can, and then what you're gonna do is on your hands and knees, you're gonna sit back and just apply a little bit of pressure into the ball. Just a touch, it doesn't need to be much. That'll give you a little extra awareness of the ball and of your pelvis in space. And it'll just start to ask a little bit of your kind of internal deep ab muscles to do just a touch of work or be slightly involved in what's happening here. So I'm gonna sit back, apply a little bit of pressure on that ball, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take you through some lumbar segmentation, but we're gonna give you extra awareness of your pelvis in space, and we're gonna see if you can start to learn to initiate movement through your pelvis and get that movement happening in your lumbar spine. But we're gonna think of it as kind of bottom-up motion, or like I just said, initiated with the pelvis. So let's start in full extension. You don't need to go into a full cat-cow here, so I don't care what your upper body is doing. In fact, I'm gonna ask you to try and keep it relatively still. Try not to set up in full flexion, try not to set up in full extension, try and find somewhere in between. And let's see if we can keep this mostly isolated to the pelvis. If you struggle with that, I've got another exercise coming up next in this class that'll help you with that. So we're gonna sit back, apply a little bit of pressure into that ball on the wall, so we just get slight compression on the ball, a little extra awareness of our sit bones. And then what you're gonna do is I want you to try and roll the ball down using your sit bones. So you should actually feel the ball rolling down slightly on the wall, and that's gonna cause your low back to round. So now you've found yourself in lumbar flexion. Then you're gonna do the opposite, maintaining slight pressure on the ball. You're then gonna try and roll the ball up on the wall by going into lumbar extension. So I just want you to slowly make your way back and forth through lumbar flexion, i.e. rolling the ball down, and then reversing and rolling the ball up, and really paying attention to what you feel happening in your pelvis. Because you should notice that when you roll the ball down, which I'm gonna go ahead and do now, that takes you into posterior pelvic tilt and then starts to drag you into lumbar flexion. Then when I reverse and I start to roll the ball up on the wall, that takes me into anterior pelvic tilt and lumbar extension. And I'm trying to minimize movement in my upper back, so I'm just consciously blocking my upper spine or my thoracic spine and trying to keep this to mostly my lumbar spine. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But what you do want is you want to maximize movement of your pelvis. So as I go up the ball or roll the ball up the wall, I'm going to go as high as I can, trying to take myself as far into anterior tilt as I can. And then I'm going to throw it in reverse, and I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to go, okay, how far can I roll that ball down on the wall using just my pelvis and lumbar spine? And just slowly make your way back and forth through that. For some people, when they're doing something like a segmental cat-cow, they do really good initiating with the top and then making their way down to the bottom, but they might not do so good initiating with the bottom and then coming up towards their neck. If that's you, this is a really good activity to start to get you good at just initiating movement with your lower spine and starting to inject some movement into that space, because if your low back is stiff, you might find that your spine, when you do your segmental cat-cow, just wants to jump up to your thoracic spine right away. And so this is a way to start to just inject some movement into that lower spine. Now we're going to make this one level harder. So your lumbar spine goes through flexion and extension, which we just did. It also side flexes. So we're going to layer that in and take you through some lumbar cars. Now this one, I admit, if you're going to do the one where you're straddling a door frame with a smaller ball, this is going to be much harder for you. So you might just want to drop the ball and just do this one on all fours, just on a normal mat, though you are welcome to try it and see how it goes for you. If your ball is big enough or your door frame is wide enough, it might actually work well. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to do that exact same exercise. So let's together roll the ball down the wall as far as you can into lumbar flexion. Then what I want you to do is think about closing off the space between the top of your pelvis and your lower ribs by hiking your right hip up towards your right shoulder. In doing so, if you maintain that slight pressure on the ball, what you're going to notice is that when you hike your right hip up to your right shoulder, it passes the ball over to your left sit bone or your left butt cheek. Then you're going to keep it there. So now you've side flexed your lumbar spine on the right side. You didn't side flex your thoracic spine, so my shoulders didn't move, just my lower body moved. I'm going to maintain that, and then I'm going to start to tuck my pelvis and roll the ball down using my left sit bone. Then I'm going to pass it over to the other side. So maintaining that tuck, maintaining the ball down or rolled down on the wall, I'm then going to side flex over to the left side, which is then going to pass the ball over to my right sit bone or my right butt cheek. I'm going to keep it there, and then I'm going to drift into extension, rolling the ball up the wall using my right sit bone. Then we're going to go all the way back to the left side, so side bending, or sorry, to the right side. Side bending to the right, passing the ball to your left sit bone, then tucking that tailbone, rolling the ball down on the wall using that left sit bone. Then side bending over to the left side, passing the ball over to your right sit bone, and then drifting back into extension, and then just come back to center. Now we're going to do that exact same thing going the other way. So maintain slight pressure on the ball. You're in lumbar extension. You're going to go back to the left, so side bend to the left side, pass the ball over to your right butt cheek. Use that right butt cheek to roll the ball down on the wall. Then keep it rolled down. Side bend all the way over to the right side. Now you're going to find the ball in your left sit bone. Use that left sit bone to roll it up the wall. Then keep it rolled up. You're going to go all the way back to the left side, side bending to the left, passing the ball to your right butt cheek. Roll the ball down on the wall. Pass it all the way back to the left sit bone by side bending to the right side. And then you're going to roll it back up on the wall and come back to neutral. So that is just lumbar cars, but we've taken those lumbar cars, we've given ourselves extra awareness of what our pelvis is doing in space. And for a lot of people, when their low back is really stiff, their awareness of their lumbar spine, their ability to feel their low back and make their low back do what they want it to do, is a little bit limited. The brain gets a little bit confused. They're trying to think of what they want to happen, but to make it happen gets quite difficult. That can help a lot if you're one of those people, because it'll increase your sensory awareness of what's happening, and it'll give you a target. So instead of just thinking, I'm going to side bend my lumbar spine to the right, and then your body trying to figure out how to do that, you can just think, I'm going to pass the ball over to the opposite butt cheek, and you'll actually feel that happening. So that if you can't feel it happening in your low back and your sensory awareness there is limited, at least you feel something happening on the ball, and the ball gives you that feedback, oh yes, I just did what I was trying to do, and then you have a little bit of confirmation that you're doing the right thing.